And beloveds, welcome to Live Your Love. Today I have the most gorgeous guest, Marianne Williamson. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's a delight to be here.
It's such a pleasure to have you. Well, I really don't think Marianne needs any introduction, but I'm going to read a little bit about her in case you've been on an island and you don't know who Marianne Williamson is. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about my personal experience with her. For more than 4 decades, Marianne Williamson has been a leader of spiritually progressive circles. She's the author of 16 books, 4 of which have been #1 New York Times bestsellers. A quote from the mega bestseller, A Return to Love: "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure," is considered an anthem for a contemporary generation of seekers. With her books and online classes, she has taught millions of people the universal spiritual principles at the heart of miracle-minded thinking. Marianne founded Project Angel Food, a nonprofit organization that has delivered more than 18 million meals to ill and dying homebound patients in the Los Angeles area since 1989. In 2004, she co-founded the Peace Alliance and supported the creation of a U.S. Department of Peace. Marianne's latest book, titled The Mystic Jesus, The Mind of Love, is available online and at bookstores everywhere. And I'm going to tell you so much more about this book, which I was just telling Marianne is truly amongst the most profound books I have read, and I have literally read thousands over 3 decades. This book, to me, was written not just about the Christ, but from the Christ. So, Marianne, such a heartfelt welcome.
Oh, thank you. You're so great. I so appreciate your support and generosity and encouragement. I'm glad you like the book.
I love the book. I love it. I've been driving my family crazy, just following them around and quoting it. Truly, it's amazing. So it's true. You say that the Course says prayer is the medium of miracles. So I do start each show with prayer invocations. So are you okay if we do that now?
Of course, of course.
All right, wonderful. So my beloved listeners and viewers, if you would please close your eyes unless you're driving, in which case please keep them open and open your heart. And perhaps you place a hand on your heart chakra and just be aware of breathing in all the love of the universe, the love of Christ. And as you exhale, just let go of anything less than love. Deep breath in, breathe in the love and light of the Holy Spirit. And as you exhale, let go of any sense of separation. Just let it all go in this beautiful field of grace and this beautiful canopy of love and miracles. One more deep breath in, breathe in all the love of the universe, of the Spirit. Inhale love, and as you exhale, that love amplifies. A miracle of miracles, it has now connected you heart to heart with each one to watch this, each one present in this radio show, each one to watch the archives. And be aware that you are intimately connected as well to the heart of the Christ, to the heart of the mystic Jesus, that you dwell within the heart of God. And just now we ask that anything that is less than love, any karma, negativity, just be taken and transmuted as we open into the light of the Holy Spirit, and more, Lord, as we open as the light. Placing this time together with Marianne into the light, each one who hears this and all those in our beautiful, beautiful purview in our world and on our planet. In every way that may grace prevail and the highest good be born anew. And so be it. Amen. Thank you. All right, beautiful soul. So I hope you are okay with me starting with what I think is on everyone's hearts and minds, with you gracing us with your presence. You to me, were wildly successful in demonstrating and actualizing and activating a politics of love on our planet when you ran for president in 2020 and 2024. And while you didn't win, and to me, didn't even get a fair shot at the Democratic nomination, you changed the course of the conversation about politics. And I have an inside scoop, y'all, which I'm going to tell you. I was lucky enough to be on Marianne's fundraising committee for Los Angeles. So I was privy to those intimate meetings. I can't tell you how moved I was that every time there was some stars on and some big players on those calls, and every time somebody had some great idea about, we're going to do this great fundraising and charge these big amounts for these tickets, and every time you, Marianne, said, I want everybody to be able to be there. I want it to be accessible. That was your anthem. And I was moved to tears. I'm moved to tears right now, because the reality of your compassion, you were living it. So would you please share with us just what did you learn about consciousness, about the Christ, about yourself during those runs?
Well, in Judaism, there's a line to repair the world. And in the New Testament, in the Christian tradition, it talks about standing in the breach. And in the Bible, it says, heaven and earth shall become as one. And that right there is talking, both of those things talk about the gap between heavenly consciousness, harmony, peace, how we could be with one another, versus how the world is. And that I think that we all feel deep pain at how different the world is today than how it could be. We hold a baby in our arms, we fall in love, we're sitting around with our own family, and we know this is how life could be. We could be at peace, we could be loving one another, everything would be good. So why is the world so mean-spirited? Why is everything so angry? Why is everything so violent? And that gap, we're all dealing with the pain of that gap, in many cases in our own individual lives, and definitely collectively. What I found running for president both times, but even more this time, was that gap is reflected in the way we do politics. There are these two realms, and one realm is just people talking about our yearnings for this country and for the world. And I see decency, and I see intelligence, and I see basic goodness and yearning for goodness and truth. I see every day on a campaign just things that I can so admire in just people, no matter who they are. And then there is this thing called our political system. And it is not what any of us would want it to be. It's soulless, it's unethical, it's about big money, it's ruthless. And that's a big problem, because if the political system is not behaving as a kind of conduit for the will of the people, then even if the will of the people is decent and intelligent, then that will is suppressed, as it were, and a machine-like way of being dominates our public life. That was painful on a personal level, to be eaten up by that machine, and it is a shredder. In 2020, they saw me as a bit of a joke, so it was enough to just mock and make fun. This time there was a viciousness. I saw how the system is so institutionally resistant to any kind of sort of radical truth-telling. So it was, in a way, a brutal experience. In a way, it was a traumatizing experience. But I am left with, part of you says, I don't ever want to touch any of that again. It's so awful. Versus, but if we don't change it, what's going to happen in this country? Now, I know that there are people, I'm sure there are people listening who voted for Trump and they're excited that Trump won, and they think, oh, don't worry, darling, it's all going to be good because Trump's president. Mm-hmm. That's not how I feel. That's not what I see coming down the road, with a few exceptions in terms of his policies. And I think America itself could go either way. So I have so much experience that I, it's funny because when A Return to Love came out, Oprah Winfrey opened a door. She opened a door for me. Return to Love would not be the major bestseller, sold millions of copies, all that stuff, if it weren't for Oprah Winfrey having opened a door. For whatever reason, I feel that in politics, I'm doing the same thing I've done in religion and spirituality. I just said, there's a truer truth here. Let's talk about what's really going on in the heart. And yet, all I met were closed doors. So it's interesting in life, because what's the lesson? Is the lesson that that's just not where the river is flowing? And take those closed doors as a sign that you're not supposed to be there? Or is there something here about waiting for some miraculous opening of the door, whatever that means? So I think that I'm living with a lot of the conundrum that a lot of people feel about what's going on in America today. And meanwhile, praying for the best for our country and for our world.
Yeah, beautiful. I think that was so beautifully said. And what I love about Return to Love, I'm sorry, well, to me, you really have come full circle here. It's just gorgeous. You even end with a similar quote, and which we'll save that to the end. But what I love about Mystic Jesus is, among many things, is that you really bring it home to the individual. It's so easy to go, well, Jesus was like that, Jesus saved me. But you really bring us back into these things I do, you too shall do an even greater, because I go to the Father. Bringing it back into our own accountability, our own responsibility, our own calling to be as Christ. And just in speaking to what you're speaking to, where your experience, it sounds like somewhat of a crucifixion during that, but it was and I was very clear when you were running, especially on those meetings, that this was your calling, this was your spiritual calling, and it would have taken nothing less than that to get you to do what you did. Is that accurate?
Well, yes, and I think that's a very interesting notion right there, because if you do feel something is your spiritual calling, or the calling of your heart to do it, which is a spiritual calling, then there's a line I heard a long time ago: to be fully invested in an effort and unattached to the results. So that would argue, do it. The fact that it'll never be a win in a political term is not what matters. The very fact that you're saying these things is what matters. I think because I had a career where saying these things also gave me a beautiful life and people were nice to me, my ego says, well, if I'm doing that, shouldn't it be like fun and nice and people are nice? So I don't know. There are a lot of questions about that, but you're right. The fact that people do not appreciate what you're doing may or may not mean you did the wrong thing. And using the example of the crucifixion of Jesus is certainly an example. As the Course in Miracles says, he hurt no one and helped so many. I'm not comparing myself, by the way, but my point being that the pattern of life is often that you do what you feel is the right thing. It may or may not get worldly applause. But like you were saying earlier, you were planting seeds, you were opening up possibilities in the universe, in somebody's mind, just the very fact that you spoke it. In terms of seeing about this book, in terms of Mystic Jesus and what it does to sort of individualize the Christ journey, is the notion that, we've all heard it said for years, if you have a dream and you're trying to interpret your dream, you want to remember that every figure in the dream is an aspect of yourself. So what I do with this book is to say every figure in the Christ story is an aspect of yourself. Mary is an aspect of yourself. Joseph is an aspect of yourself. Herod is an aspect of yourself. Your relationship with the three kings, the inner child, the Christ child, all this is an aspect of yourself. The crucifixion is an aspect of your experience. The resurrection can be an aspect of your experience. And so, whereas Jesus as a person was born 2,000 years ago. There's an entire ecclesiastic tradition and church, institutional dogma and doctrine that is built around that. This is nothing to show disrespect for that or undermine it or in any way. But I think that we are at a time on the planet of rethinking everything. We're rethinking everything. And as we rethink spirituality and religion, we start to see the great religious stories. Now, this would be not only the story of Jesus, this would be true of the story of Moses and the Exodus. It would be true of the story of Buddha and other scriptures as well, that their code that has to do with our own experience. And so that when we are understanding the journey of Jesus, we're understanding our own journey. And we are recognizing that the journey, he demonstrates the journey of life. And yet he demonstrates the journey of life when one's heart is so open that all that is not love is ultimately nullified. And so what I hope people will get from this book is not just ruminating and illumination on his life, but rumination and illumination on our own lives. That this is not just about he who lived 2,000 years ago, but he who lives within us as a universal spiritual force of consciousness. And that applies, you don't have to be a Christian in order to receive that the idea of that connection, eternal connection with God, is universal. All religions and no religion. And his is one name on that door. I opened the book talking about, quoting a part from the Course where he says, I don't have anything you don't have. The difference between us is I don't have anything else. I'm in a state which is only potential in you. So we are living at a time when literally, in order for the species to survive, we must expand into a higher version of ourselves. He is someone who actualized the highest version of humanity while on the earth. And the Course in Miracles says that his having achieved that state, God then authorized him to help us should we request it. If you don't request it, that's okay. That would be a violation of your free will for him to enter into your thought system. But if you do, he is given the power to guide, to, as he says, my mind joined with your mind can shine away the ego. I often think of it like a cookie cutter, right? And there's a cookie cutter of the perfect you of the divinely actualized human being. And most of us have some batter in there, but the fullness of who we are doesn't fill the whole cookie cutter yet. He's the whole cookie, he's the whole thing. And he is seen in the Course as an elder brother, a psychological guide, an internal guide. And that brings an immediacy, a modernity, a contemporaneous insight into his life. As he says in the Course, prove that I did not die in vain by showing that I did not die. Let me live in you. Let me guide your thoughts. Let me guide your feelings. Let me guide what you say. Let me guide where you go. Let me guide what you do. And you will emerge into a version of yourself that is truly the Christ itself.
Yes, exactly. I love that. That's so beautiful. And that's, to me, really true. You know, I'm half East Indian and half English. So, and I was ordained as a Christian minister when I was 25, but I'm equally dedicated to a path of mysticism, Eastern mysticism. And there was never any argument, you know, for me. It's all the Christ is an opportunity available to all, regardless of religion or no religion. It's about, are we choosing love when everything outside of us and inside of us presses us to choose less than love? Nonetheless, are we choosing love? Are we choosing to align our minds with the mind of the divine? And you see that through all religions, all spiritual paths, at the height of the spiritual path. And to me, that's what you do so brilliantly in this book, is bring it back to it's within us. And that is very contemporary, called like, it's not about looking outside of yourself to be saved. It's about looking within to be saved. Go ahead.
Well, all of the great religious traditions have their mystical path. The mysticism, as you said, is the path of the heart. In Judaism, there's the Kabbalah. In Islam, there's Sufism. And the mystical Christ-centered path has always been there. I mean, if you read that wonderful book by Elaine Pagels called The Gnostic Gospels, and St. Teresa of Avila and Teilhard de Chardin, I see the Course in Miracles as part of that legacy. So
Yes.
the legacy of the institutional Christian church is the ecclesiastical tradition. That's where you find dogma, doctrine, and the idea that you need the church to broker your relationship with God. But as you were just saying, there's the mystical path is the idea that the Holy Spirit, it speaks to you personally through prayer, through reflection, through forgiveness, through these powers. We can ourselves have a personal relationship that enables us to connect not only with God, but by definition, therefore, with the possibilities within ourselves to be more loving, to be more compassionate, to be more forgiving, and so forth. And like you keep mentioning the word salvation, that's a perfect example. You know, in the Course in Miracles, and this book really is based on the idea of Jesus in the Course in Miracles. In the Course, what it does is it uses traditional Christian terms, but it uses them in decidedly non-traditional psychotherapeutic ways. So take that line, salvation and Jesus as the Savior. Well, from a Course perspective, the only thing to be saved from is our own insane thinking, our own fear. It says that the world is dominated by a thought system based on fear, which is the absence of love, which means we've disconnected from God, we've disconnected from love, and we habitually think thoughts that are loveless. Now, as so many people are aware now, thought is the level of cause, and the world is the level of effect. And God, once God creates a law, he's not going to change it. And he created that law for our benefit. So if we have effects in our lives that are not wonderful, we can't ask God to change the effect unless we're willing to change the cause. To say Jesus is Savior means he will, if we allow him to, work with us on the level of cause, that we ourselves might change our thinking. He can't do it for us, but he can do it with us. He can't take from us what we won't release to him. So salvation becomes a process of, dear God, save me from myself. Save me from my temptation to always become so controlling. Take from me my temptation to react in anger. Take from me my temptation to judge other people. Take from me my temptation. Let me not wander in temptation, but deliver me from evil. Leave me not. I've been taught by this world to judge, to attack, to blame, to cast the blame on other people, to get needy, to get jealous, to get all the things with which I then sabotage my relationships and thus my life. Save me from that. Save me from that constant temptation. I need a power greater than myself to do for me what I cannot do for myself. You know, it's like in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, one of the first things you have to get to the point of knowing you can't do this by yourself. And that's what the ego mind really is. It's addiction to fear. We are trained from such an early age to blame rather than bless. To attack rather than embrace. And we're living, and I think today we're living in such a mean-spirited moment, aren't we? I mean, there's just, everybody's so angry, and now with all the political stuff. So that Star of Bethlehem means the light within us, light that casts out darkness and that will guide us to a better way. The Course in Miracles says salvation begins when we consider the possibility there might be a better way. The other aspect of that, when I said before that Jesus is like an evolutionary elder brother, when you and I were children, we were taught about evolution, right? And we were taught that if a species gets to the point where its behavioral patterns are no longer well adaptive for survival of that species, it could go extinct. It will evolve in a different direction or it will go extinct. And so when we were kids, we were taught that there's a mutation and that the mutation demonstrates a different direction of behavior that the species could take. And when the species takes that different direction and adapts, then it evolves into the next place and it does not go extinct. I see Jesus, I see Buddha, I see Moses, I see all the great religious figures as mutations. They demonstrate a better way. And all of them, they demonstrate a better way. And at this point in our evolution, that's why, I love that Christmas carol, long lay the world in sin and error pining till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. For him to appear means for you to see, I could actually be big enough to handle this situation. I could actually be full of forgiveness. I could actually be filled with compassion. And if I ask him to impress himself upon my consciousness, I can make it. And that's what's going to save the world, Alicia. The only thing that's going to save the world, the idea, when you look at all the problems on the planet, well, if you look at it only from a material or reason-based perspective, we're in such trouble. And if not us, then definitely our grandchildren or great-grandchildren. But from a spiritual perspective, the world as it is now is a reflection of the people we have been. We have it within us to be the people who have the capacity to both perceive what needs to be done and the power with which to do it. And that to me is a spiritual process. It has not only the question, what do we need to do now, but who do we need to be now? And he is a teacher and a guide, should we request it, to the actualization of our own divine potential.
Beautiful, beautiful, absolutely. And to me, that is the ultimate in going beyond time and space. We're not going back 2,000 years. We're bringing that present to transcend the idea that this is all there is, to transcend the idea that the corruption and the difficulty in the world is all there is, because really none of that is going on. What's going on is consciousness evolving and learning about itself.
Right.
And that mind of Christ is right within us, should we choose that. And it's not just to Christians or to Buddhists, etc. It's fascinating that even in higher consciousness, even in mysticism, there can be an aversion to a conversation about the Christ because of equating it with church or Christianity. And yet I think that's as unnecessary as Christians saying, you're going to hell if you're not a Christian. That to me is just as much of a limitation. In my book, Your Angelic Ancestry, I have a chapter on the Christ, and my publisher, Penguin Random House, had wanted me originally to take it out. And I said, it has to be in, because it's not about any religion. It's about transcending separation and coming into this golden age of the Christing of the planet, the Buddhizing of the planet, to the evolution into a higher way. How do you address that?
Well, I'm Jewish, and I talk about that at the beginning of the book. I said, this is not a Christian book. I'm not a Christian scholar. I'm talking about, as a student of A Course in Miracles, which is not a religion, which is a psychological mind training about relinquishing a thought system based on fear and accepting instead a thought system based on love. The idea of Christ, there's a phrase in the Jewish religion, the Shekinah. Of course, there's the idea of the Buddha mind, the idea of the true mind. And most of us are familiar with the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung. So Carl Jung said, if you go deep enough into your mind and deep enough into mine, that there is a level of mental imagery that he called archetypes that we all share. The Christ mind is the idea that if you go deep enough into your mind and deep enough into mine, that we are the same mind. There's only one mind. And that's the metaphysical meaning of there's only one begotten Son. So the Course says at the highest level, psychotherapy and religion are the same thing. It's a healing of the mind. So I understand, it's interesting that you say that Random House wanted you to take that out, because I have found in my life how often it's Christians who are averse because of their
Completely. That too.
childhood. You know, it's like
Too.
I just
Mhm.
never really been taught anything about these terms. Oh, that's cool. But my Christian friends had so much to unlearn,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, about, oh, that means, like you said, going to hell. Well, the Course says
Mhm.
heaven is not a condition or a place, it's an awareness of our oneness. Hell is what the ego mind, the belief that we're separate, makes of any moment when you think without love. It's called anxiety, it's called depression,
Right.
it's called fear, it's called being tied up in knots because you're not at one with yourself and the way your mind was intended to be used. Hell is not after you die, it's after you think or act a certain way. It's your emotional and psychological experience. And so is
Yeah.
heaven. We've all had
Mhm.
moments. You've had children, a lover, a spouse, you know, you're in nature, you're with a baby, and you say, this is heaven. Well, it is. There's an awareness of our oneness. So, yeah, I think people are beginning to understand that. And that's really how this book came to be written. That my editor called me and said, booksellers say that people keep asking for books about Jesus that are not specifically tied to the Christian religion. Do you have any ideas here? Well, as a student of A Course in Miracles, yeah, I mean, it's exactly that, which is not in any
Yeah.
way to say that there is not the truth of the real Jesus within the Christian religion, because there is. And he cannot be monopolized by any particular group or institution. Nobody
Right.
can monopolize the sun. Nobody can monopolize the air. Nobody can monopolize the breeze. Nobody, you know, nobody gets to say,
Mhm.
I own that. You know?
Right.
And I think that's the world in which we're
Yes.
living in today.
Absolutely. And to me, there's such a beauty in, we are moving from the Piscean age into the Aquarian age, from the age of me into the age of we. And this is a coming together going to, enough waging wars in the name of God. Can we come together and drop all that artifice and pull back the curtain on the truth of life? And which is love.
Well, you know, even there, though, children are not born to hate. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's so important to remember. We are born knowing, you know, I remember years ago, not, you know, way before October 7th. I remember once when I was in Israel and I was in the office of the American ambassador. He said the majority of Palestinians do not hate each other. He said they fear each other. And
Mm.
those little babies, those little children are not taught. You know, there's a phenomenon in Israel called the hand-in-hand schools that are so inspiring, where they're little Arab children and Jewish children, and every classroom would have a teacher who spoke Arabic and a teacher who spoke Hebrew. The little children would learn uh, each other's religions, each other's history, even the difficult part. You know, to you it's Independence Day, to you it's Catastrophe Day. But if children are taught these things, we know so much about the brain. So, we know that in the first 5 years of life is when 90% of the brain is formed. So when you say, can't we just realize what's true? Well, it's easy for you and me to say, because we're living where we're living and in the circumstances we're living. Now, if you're in certain parts of the world, and I saw this way before October 7th, you've got to admit they have a point. And this person would be likely to say, he killed my brother. You'd say to
Mm-hmm.
that person, you've got to, don't you get, well, what he's saying has value. He killed my mother. So we have to get, as children, this is everything. We have got to build these synapses of compassion into the brains of little children, because otherwise,
Yeah.
once we have enough accumulated experience, Alicia, there's so much hurt, there's so much wounding, there's so much trigger, there's so much trauma, that just saying to people, well, can't we pull back the curtain? We have to realize people are born without the curtain. We have to become so much more reverent towards early childhood. It's the only way. And that's why Jesus says in the New Testament, suffer the little children to come unto me. If we, you
Yes.
know, you were talking about my running for president, one of the things I made a big part of my campaign was the idea of a massive transfer of resources into the lives of children under 10. I mean, it
Yeah.
all happens. If you have, even on the most material level, you know, if you have a child who can't learn to read by the age of eight, but definitely 10, if they can't read, then the chances of high school graduation are greatly reduced. The chances of incarceration greatly increased. And on a spiritual level, like I said, traumatized, wounded children. So we have got to, see where, once again, we've got to make heaven and earth shall be as one. The Course in Miracles says Jesus is someone who lived on the earth but thought only the thoughts of heaven. That's what we have to actualize, our capacity not only to see these things abstractly. The Course in Miracles says enlightenment begins as an abstract concept and takes a journey without distance from the head to the heart. And I think that that's where women like you and me, this is really interesting. Okay, we're living in a country where, as in any advanced democracy, more than not, we can certainly talk about our problems. It's not like we don't have problems, but more than not, you and I live in a place of privilege and a place of safety. We can assume certain things. So we can, as so many in our field have done, we've got to pull the curtain back. We've got to see the truth of our love for each other. But now I think it's that journey without distance. Yes, how does that apply to this situation? How does that apply to that situation? How does that apply to that war? How does that apply to the fact that people are hungry? How does that apply to what we are doing to the planet? And I think seeing, when we talk about what would Jesus do, it's funny, people say, what would Jesus do? I think from a Course in Miracles perspective, the issue is not just what would Jesus do, but ask him what you should do.
Exactly. And that's where it's about bringing it back home to this moment and not going, well, I can't do anything about that. It's what is the mind of Christ imploring me to do right in this moment? It might be pick up the phone and call that person I haven't talked to in so long. It might be, donate money to this. It might be just sacrifice that ego position to, and come to the love, see the innocence. And so it really is taking that divine pause, which is everything.
The Course in Miracles says that God has an answer to every problem the moment the problem occurs. Because remember, God is total love. God being total love and total perfection and total power. Think of it as though the universe is both self-organizing and self-correcting. So you look at the fact that let's just take even our country or the world, things clearly off course. No doubt about that. We all get that. Something's really gone awry. So in faith means knowing the solution exists in the mind of God. The moment a problem happens, and each of us has our part to play. So you say, show me how I can help. And like you said, it might be call your mother. It might be heal with this person or that person. Why? Because until you have a healing, remember the part of the New Testament where a woman comes up to Jesus and says, I want to be with you. I'm not getting along with my husband right now, but I want to go be with you. He says, go heal with your husband first. Yeah. Because our own personal relationships, healing them prepares our nervous system to be of greater service in the world. That's why I always say, pray in the morning, kick ass in the afternoon. It's both and. We have to prepare our vessel. That's why you start with prayer and you end with meditation. We're preparing our personal vessel, our nervous system, to be able to receive the light, the soul medicine. It's here, it's with us. And just like the cells in the body are assigned, you to the pancreas, you to the lungs, you to the, you to the brain, you, Alicia, you, Los Angeles, podcast, Marianne, you, whatever, both of us write books, right? That each of us, that everything we're guided to do. One of the exercises in the course is in the morning, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say and to whom? Sometimes it's, like you said, it's very personal. I do think that we have to honor our incarnation. And when I hear any American, particularly an American woman, say, oh, I can't do anything about that. If you live in an advanced democracy, yes, you can. But we have to start seeing citizenship as a sacred duty. Sacred duty. And I think all of this is happening right now. I think it's all coming together. Martin Luther King said that in order to create the beloved community, we need to have quantitative changes in our circumstances and qualitative shifts in our souls. It's both and right now.
Absolutely. And we do need to act. I mean, absolutely there's a huge service in awakening and opening our consciousness. And there's the meditation and the prayer and the spiritual practice. And we need to act. We need to put our body on the line. I mean, you are the ultimate example of that. We need to, it might be called like, I'm going to start a book club, or I'm going to post the post, or I'm going to be really vulnerable in this, big opportunity I have, and throw out the script and just channel love as best I can. But we need to act as well. It's really a dance between being and doing. And I think we can get so counterbalanced on one or the other.
That's right. I agree. I remember saying graffiti once, to be is to do, Schopenhauer, to do is to be, Nietzsche, doobie doobie doo, Sinatra. It's both. There are a lot of hours in the day. It's working on ourselves and working on the world. It's like you said, this is not the age of one or the other. This is the age of both and.
It is. And we can't really pretend we have all the time in the world, because we don't.
No, not right now. We truly don't. We truly do not.
No. I have to read this gorgeous, you have so many quotes. You should see all the highlighted in there. So this gorgeous quote, it's about resurrection. It's important to focus on our light, but as important, I'm sorry, let me start it again. As important as it is to own our darkness, we should also own our light. Now, you revolutionize an entire generation with that one quote, which, so funny, was attributed to Nelson Mandela. My son is the one who came to me, because I gave that book to him, and he said, Mom, he said, I Googled this. They actually are attributing Marianne Williamson. We said, didn't Nelson Mandela say that? I said, no, Marianne said. He said, no, Nelson. I'm like, dude, Google it. So he did went, oh my God, she said it. And it was attributed to him. That's kind of an honor in a backdoor way.
Well, yes, and it was interesting, because obviously if he had quoted it, I would be, of course, honored. But he didn't. I mean, even they put it on the Mandela Foundation website. This is not his. But what I found interesting, I have to tell you, Alicia, because I felt so much of this in politics, there were people for whom the fact that it was just me who said it wasn't good enough. Yeah, so interesting. I remember at the very beginning of all this, and by the way, something I find interesting, no one has ever come up to me in all these years. No one has ever come up to me and said, I'm the one who took that one paragraph out and put it out into the world that it was Nelson Mandela. Because the Mandela's office said he didn't do it. And by the way, the book came out, what was it, 2 years after his, and I mean, the whole thing is weird, or before, yeah, whatever. But I remember going up to this couple.
Your book came out before it was attributed to him. So clearly you said it.
92 and 94, right. So I went up to this couple. It was a psychiatric thing. And I went up to this psychiatrist who had quoted it. And I said, excuse me, I just wanted you to know, actually, that was my quote. He said, prove it. I said, copyright law? And then he turned to the microphone. He said, that woman will stop at nothing. I thought, my God, what is that? But then I heard all kinds of interesting stories. I heard about an AA meeting where somebody said it and said it was Nelson Mandela. Then somebody else said, no, it was Marianne Williamson. Then they started arguing. And then somebody said, no, it doesn't matter here. It's principles before personalities. And I was told about a woman who said, it does matter, because you've been doing this to women forever. It's a woman who wrote it. I wasn't there, but I heard about it. And I heard that she was not willing to let that go. No, it does matter.
And she's right. And to me, that's where you were speaking from spirit, not about it. You were.
Yeah, but by the way, that's just a part of the Course in Miracles. I mean, that whole book is reflections on the principles of the Course in Miracles. So I can't take credit for the content of that paragraph. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm just talking about a point that the Course makes. So,
well, you were a conduit, and yes, it came from spirit, and you had to say yes, and you had to open your mind, and you had to sacrifice all the things that would get in the way of that to bring it through. So the
I
quote
think
that
that's
I'm
true.
starting, it is absolutely true. That's why you're beloved by generations, including
Thank
me.
you. Thank you.
Yes.
Right back at you. Thank you.
Thank you. So the quote, but as important as it is to own our darkness, we should also own our light. Jesus is a name for that light. We should not be mesmerized by the crucifixion. Look at it, but do not dwell on it. Understand the darkness, but look beyond it to the light. The resurrected mind is the light of God within us. It is the mind that understands that only love is real and nothing else exists. Marianne, there's been such a focus on, and I don't think it's all, of course, there's been lots of good in it, but such an analysis of my shadow side and narcissism and all, right?
It's gone way too far. You can't, the idea that if you just analyze the darkness enough, you'll get to the light. No, you choose the light. Where there is light, the darkness cannot be. Where there is love, the fear cannot be. I could, give you a pretty sophisticated story about my childhood and things with my father or things with my mother. But I know from my having lived long enough, from my having had enough therapy as well as Course in Miracles, at a certain point, just understanding how you got to be a certain way doesn't change you. That at a certain point, no matter where you got your stuff, it's yours now. And the idea of saying it doesn't matter how I got this way, but I recognize it is a dysfunctional pattern. I do get reactive, or I do get needy, or I do get jealous, or I do get selfish, or I do get withholding, or I do get lazy, or I do get, and then you say, Jesus, please take this away from me.
Right.
Holy Spirit, please take this away from me. And the idea that possibility exists for doing it right. Like you said, we become mesmerized, and it's made everybody a victim, and it's made everybody associated with their own personal drama, or the drama of our race, or the drama of our ethnicity, or the drama. It just contributed to this disunity. We're all human beings going through the same journey of the soul, and it's worn us down, and we are so burdened by it. And like you said, we embellish. When I was a young woman, there was a home invasion when I was 17 years old. And it was a very terrible experience. And I did have, I had for what was at that time, proper help. I have known women, I feel very fortunate that I was of a generation, because when that happened, I was 17, I was born in 50, so maybe 1969. It was a period of time when, yes, it was seen as a terrible thing. Yes, I was given the help I needed, but no one put it in my consciousness. No one ever suggested to me, oh, by the way, you'll make this your calling card for the rest of your life. Nobody suggested that to me. Nobody said, oh, by the way, you have to live, oh, this happened to me for the rest of your life. It just wasn't put in my consciousness. And later, years later, I would meet women who, yes, it's terrible. 1 in 4 American women are sexually molested on some level. It is terrible. But this idea that therefore what happened to me, I am wounded, I am branded forever, is a way of saying my crucifixion defines me. And the whole point of the crucifixion is he went into he goes into the body is removed, he goes into the tomb, and for those 3 days is the symbol of, you got to grieve it, you got to process it, you got to work it through. But there's a point where just feeling your feelings can become indulging your feelings. Processing your stuff can become spewing your stuff. And yes, you have to go into that cave. Yes, we do. And that's what therapy is, and that's what spiritual practice is, and that's what sacred, all that stuff. We know that. But what's so incredible to me is 3 days later, that symbolic 3 days in the Old Testament, it's 40 years in the desert, that time it takes to take the process of the the experience of the crucifixion, and it becomes transformed through this alchemy of you're holding your heart open, taking responsibility where you need to, forgiving others, all of the things we need, the work we need to do. And this is what's so amazing to me. So when the women come 3 days later and they want to get the body, the angels, the thoughts of God, say, he isn't here, he's risen. Now, two things come up for me. First of all, he says in the Course in Miracles, I don't need you to join me in the crucifixion, join me in the resurrection. Crucifixion's already been done. The point is, I have demonstrated this is nullified. Only love is real. You will not be permanently affected by this. Yes, I mean, you were temporarily affected, but God is so great that God can turn anything into good. You now have an understanding of that suffering. You can help other people who have that suffering. You can become more committed to the kinds of things that will make those things less liable to happen. So what's incredible to me about how that body isn't there is on the other side of this. If you make your commitment to move through this to the resurrection, you're not even the same person.
Mm-hmm.
You're not even the same person you were before it happened. And, you know, in some ways you can be, I love that line, the phrase that Jean Houston uses, a sacred wound. Your wounds can be something that increases your compassion, increases your understanding, increases your sophistication. And you can't rush that. I'm not saying rush it, but at the same time, it's 3 days on that cross, not 3 decades.
Right. So beautifully said, so beautifully said. And he was crucified in essence for us and took something from us that is from us, is gone. And so it's now we can rise easier should we open our hearts and go, okay, nonetheless, I rise.
Well, absolutely. He says it was a radical teaching example. It is finished. He has nullified. Those things are nullified. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have to go through what you go through. I mean, I just went through running for president. Let me tell you, I was not abused as a child. I mean, that situation certainly, but in terms of my overall childhood, but I've been abused as an adult. You know, one of the things I saw running for president is we talk about how terrible it is to bully teenagers online. Why is it okay to bully adults online? And the misogyny, all the stuff. And you have to heal and you have to go through that period. But it's got to be, one of the things I saw about my running for president, Alicia, was, Marianne, if you don't process this, if you don't seek to take responsibility for your own part and forgive others for theirs, you will become a bitter old woman. If you don't, you will become really pathetic, and people will say it's really sad about Marianne. And you will become brittle and bitter, and those are your two choices. Or do your work. Take responsibility for your part. Grow from it. Be a better person now. Forgive other people. And I've thought about it so much. Boy, when I can get to the part that I'm like, cool, and I'm not all the way there yet, but I'm certainly, you know, I'm getting there. That's like, that's not the same person.
Right. It's not, I don't know if I can say this, it's badass, girl.
Thank you.
Really, it's
I will
your
take the
own
compliment.
it really is the resurrection, you know, and it's the resurrection that we grow into and can grow into each moment. So as I'm going to read one more beautiful quote, and then we are almost done. This has flown. So about our planet and the resurrection of our planet as we collectively rise together into the light. You say 2,000 years ago was an overcoming by one man. Resurrection today is an overcoming by each of us and by the entire species. We ourselves must become the change, and that is the resurrection. God cannot do for us that which he cannot do through us. We must be willing to be reborn into a higher version of ourselves if we're to achieve the miracle of planetary transformation. I don't even have I just want you to just riff on that for a moment. That's so profound.
Well, the resurrection today is collective. You know, in the Bible, there's the story of the Armageddon, and the idea that there will be a great war, and then after that, there will be 1,000 years of peace. Now, many traditional Christians think that that's coming and think that it has to happen and let's just get on with it because then we'll have peace. To the metaphysical minded among us is like, wait a minute. God would never foreordain that level of unbelievable human and other species suffering.
Right.
So there's another way of looking at it. For one person, they're having to get sober was their Armageddon. For another person, their divorce was their Armageddon. For another person, they're going through cancer was their Armageddon. For another person, running for president and being treated the way I was their Armageddon. For another person, it's bankruptcy was their Armageddon. The idea is if you become different and learn wisdom from your Armageddon, and another person goes through what they go through, process it, become wiser and more peaceful because of their Armageddon, then we can pool our resources. You bring your peace, you bring your peace, you're more enlightened than you used to be, you're more enlightened than you used to be, you're more enlightened than you used to be, you're more enlightened than you used to be. We're going to meet at a higher level of exponential maximum soul growth possibility. And we can then choose a different way than the big global Armageddon and instead transform, not immediately, but make that direct ascent into the state of peace on the other side of it. And that's why, like when I was saying before, you said, it might be just that you call your mother today. Yeah, but you know what? Every time any of us does anything that's more loving, like if you think about it right now, okay? It is reasonable to assume that millions of people are basically having the same conversation you and I are having right now. Sometimes it's two lovers talking in bed. Sometimes it's people at a congregation, all ethnicities, all races, all religions. People are sensing, giving birth to something new. So we are all connected through these little silver filaments. So you're not alone. You might think, well, what does it matter? How does it help the world if I call my mother? It does. The Course in Miracles says anytime you forgive anyone, you are helping to bless situations you'll never even know about.
Yes.
Because anytime we love, we are helping to purify the field. It is a global. Some people say to me, but we got to organize. I don't think anybody during the Renaissance looked at each other and went, it's the Renaissance. Do you think it's the Renaissance? Life knows how to organize itself.
Yeah.
Life knows how to organize itself. We need to think about the vertical. Life will take care of the horizontal. If we just wake up every day, how can I be better in this situation? How can I play this situation better than I played it last time this kind of thing happened? How can I meditate, pray, make sure I don't fall into the ego default patterns that I might be tempted to? We're all part of a great experience of global transformation going on as we speak. One world falling apart, another world struggling to be born. And I think we have to be death doulas to one and birth doulas to the other. And that's what we're doing. We're living at an incredible moment.
Yeah. And that is, to me, the new age. That is the alchemy. That is the resurrection.
That is the Star of Bethlehem.
That is the Star of Bethlehem right within us. All of us at a point on it.
The Course in Miracles says light means understanding. A burst of light means a burst of understanding.
So beautiful. And it does, again, coming full circle, put the onus on us, called when one soul rises, all of humanity marches forward.
And the fact that one completed the process completely, i.e. Jesus, and the Course says there have been others, but I don't know, means that now it's an opportunity available to everyone. That's why we don't, like you said, let's not and just talk about the darkness all the time. Yeah. Talk about how awesome is the light.
Exactly. So, Marianne, before we move into meditation, what can we visualize for you? What is it? What can we, there's a lot of listeners on the radio for this show. What can we see for you? Please let
Well,
us.
okay, so this is what the Course would say. He'll tell you.
What did
He'll
you say?
tell you.
Okay.
God will tell you. He's not going to, God's not giving me the answer for you. I'll give you an example. In the book of Gospel of Thomas, right? So in Gospel of Thomas, Jesus said to the disciples, go out into the countryside and teach the gospel. And to teach means to demonstrate. And the gospel is love. So he says, go out into the countryside, teach the gospel, to demonstrate love. And one of the disciples said to him, well, what will we say? And he responded, I'll tell you when you get there. So I appreciate the desire in your heart. You'll know, Ella. And you know what? Nobody up there is saying, get the words right. Nobody up there is going, could you use a different image, please? I know from talking to you how strong and what a blessing is your generosity and your graciousness towards me. I'm already blessed by it. So the idea that I'm going to have the cherry on the top, which is you bringing other people into that, since as the Course says, an idea is stronger when it's shared, is just such a gift to me. And you'll be perfect.
Beautiful. And I know everyone listening will be sharing light with you in the way that he is telling them.
Thank you.
Individually. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you
this has
so
been
much.
my pleasure. My pleasure. I just love just seeing that of each person just adding light to you. To me, your service has been profound in so many ways, even politically, which none of us who didn't know you well expected. And it's just, when I saw you do that, it went, this is a spiritual action. This is bringing the light into an area that is sorely in need of it. And
thank you.
I can only imagine the cost of that. And I can also only imagine the blessing, the personal blessing of that, the resurrection.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
God bless
so, God bless you. We are going to move into a brief meditation where I have the unenviable task of endeavoring to present a bit of an experience of what Marianne has so gorgeously shared. And then I'm going to tell y'all some secrets about the mystic Jesus and a beautiful course you can join with Marianne. So we're going to move into meditation briefly and then share all kinds of richness. Okay, so my beloveds, let's move into a meditation. It'll just be a few moments. And so just be aware now that he will tell you, as Marianne shared. So I want you to just open a space, and in this beautiful space in front of you that is fraught with the light of the Holy Spirit, I want you to place into this space whatever it is that, in Marianne's words, will be nullified by the light, whatever it is that is in that cave of crucifixion. So we all have our personal hell, our personal, just that last bit of us where we say, once I get rid of this, I'll be resurrected. So why not now? Because now is the time of miracles. So I just want you to see in front of you the most gorgeous bonfire, and that is the fire of the Christ. And in that fire, first of all, see what color it is, because that color is the perfect color that every cell of your beingness needs, and your emotions and your mind. And place into that purification of the fire whatever it is that keeps you in that cave. Might be a judgment of a particular person, a physical condition, some sort of barbs from others, a collective action that seemed against you, politics, climate change, something that was done or said that you say, I cannot find the innocence in that. Place that in that purifying fire in front of you. Let's see it taken by the Christ. Just as Jesus lifted up our sins, let us see those sins of separate thinking placed in that fire. For that is not who we are. That is a temporary state through which we travel. What else do you want to place in that fire? It could be a collective anxiety. Could simply be the sense of being separate from your holy Creator. The illusion of that. The tenacity of that illusion. Concern over events in the world. For God is within it all. And so a few more seconds placing into that fire. Deep breath in, breathe in the light, exhale and let go of anything less than light into that fire. See it extinguished by the fire, burned up in the fire. And that fire now goes out into the light, taking with it anything that keeps you separate from the Christ, anything that keeps you outside of the mind of love. Now, in the place of that fire is the most gorgeous, blooming field. It is a field of grace. It is a field of the Christ. Enter into that field. Walk into that field. And miracle of miracles, you're now hand in hand with everyone on the planet. And we all rise together. So join in the resurrection. For truly we are one in the mind of love, and the Christ is pouring blessings upon you now, healing every cell of your body, every thought of your mind, every emotion, your unconscious, and most of all, resurrecting you into your soul and beyond into the highest realms of spiritual light. Heaven on earth. This is who you are, as the planet is Christed through you each moment of love. Indeed, a return to love. And so be it. Amen, and may it be so. Breathe in love as we come back and hear how we can participate very directly with Marianne.
Amazing. I'm in a pretty blissful place now. Thank you. What a magnificent meditation that was. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
thank you.
So my pleasure. So my pleasure. Okay, dudes, I'm obsessed with this book. I am obsessed. No, truly, it is a holy obsession. I have read it at least once. I've listened to it. I'm going to go with 3 times.
Yeah, people tell me they like the audio.
Oh, thank you for doing it yourself, because your voice carries the frequency of it. And then, and there's just so many mic drop moments. I don't know what else to call them, but incredible quotes. I was saying that I have, because I've been a spiritual intuitive professionally and personally for decades now, I've read hundreds of books. This is amongst my favorite of books by spiritual masters. You mentioned a few: Teresa of Avila, St. John of the Cross, Rumi. It's just, Marianne, I think you had to live your whole life and maybe lifetimes to write this book. Just saying. To me, it really is written from the Christ. So I cannot recommend it highly enough. I've sent it to many friends already.
Thank you.
It's available everywhere. You can go anywhere and find it, The Mystic Jesus. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about this?
No, you've been so kind. I just hope that people will feel an opening and a greater peace and comfort and inspiration. And I hope the book will find its way into the hands of anyone who would be served by it. So thank you for helping me do that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And so there's also a really beautiful opportunity, which I'm attending, by the way, a really beautiful opportunity with Marianne called A Metaphysical Christmas. And of course, we'll put the link in all the descriptions. And it's easy to find marianne.com/A Metaphysical Christmas. If you just go to Marianne's website, very easy to find it, December 15th. Tell us about that.
Well, this is going to be an all-day seminar. On the West Coast, it will be Wait a minute. It's 10 to
10 to
10
4
what?
Pacific time, 10 to 4.
Okay, 10 to 4 Pacific time. Okay. And it's we were talking about how every aspect of the life of Jesus is an aspect of yourself. Christmas is about the birth of something new. It's about who is Mary within you. She's the divine feminine, as it were. It's this Joseph is the divine masculine, which is also an interesting part of the story. She's awakened in the middle of the night, representing the slumber we're all in to what's true. The angels are the thoughts of God. She's told to go up onto the roof, which is your higher mind, prayer and meditation. The angel Gabriel says, something's going to be born in you. God himself is going to impregnate you in your heart. Something new will be born from that, mothered by your humanness, fathered by God himself, you, the Christ on earth. And that's the real story of Christmas. And once again, it's the story of his birth 2,000 years ago, but it's the story of his rebirth inside us anytime we are more expanded in love. Just as a woman's, the cervix opens, the heart opens, and we're shut in a lot of fear right now. And I love the part in the course where it says an idea grows stronger when it's shared. So here in this online class, when you're with other people going through the same process and really looking at ourselves, what are the parts of us that we're ready to let go, that are needing to die? And they might have come about because they helped us cope. Some of the most dysfunctional aspects of our personality came about at the time because we needed what we felt like was protection. But now it's a defensiveness that keeps love at bay. What is dying and what is trying to be born within us? And can we give welcome to that process within ourselves? And what will that mean? And then what will be those three kings? And who will be Herod? And what is that story as it lives archetypally inside us? And what are the psychological processes that we might deepen into in order to experience this as a time of our own rebirth as he is born in the world? What does that light of Bethlehem mean? And why is this a time of joy? Because if it's just, let's be joyful, I don't know. But if it's, wow, something's changing in me and I get, this is really joyful, that's something else. So that's what we'll be doing that day. It's the metaphysics of Christmas. Physics is of the world, metaphysics is that which is bigger than the world. So that will be December 15th. And like you said, people can find out about that at Marianne.com. And then I hope the book, for those who are interested in the metaphysics of and the mystical aspects of Jesus, then I hope that the book itself will be a blessing on people's Christmas. It's a good time for, stuff like this. This is the season to be curious. What does all this mean?
Absolutely. And I just want to mention, so yes, so that's A Metaphysical Christmas. Just go to Marianne.com and it's right on the homepage. Very reasonable. You get a bonus of 5 transformational teachings just for signing up for the class. So, I mean, to me, that's truly the spirit of Christmas. That's the Christmas season. So what a beautiful way to go back into the real spirit of Christmas. And yes, incredible Christmas present. I have myself, I've already bought it for several people. And what I really find with the book is that sometimes I would just start listening somewhere and it's so uplifting, even if you're not consciously, because I had already read it, I already listened to it once. And then it was just, I wanted it to repattern my mind. And it did. And it does. So it's available Kindle, Audible, and of course hardcover and paperback.
There's that line in the Bible from Romans: "Conform not to the patterns of the world, but allow for the renewal of your mind." When Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world," that was 2,000 years before Freud was born. My kingdom is not of this world. It's right in here. It's right in here. That's where the kingdom is. Conform not to the patterns of the world. Bring it home. Have your mind renewed. And that will be the salvation not only of our own lives, but truly the salvation of the world.
Just gorgeous. Oh my goodness, this has been such a blessed time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's always, always nice to be with you. And I look forward to seeing you in person sooner rather than later, sometime in the new year.
I would love that. I would absolutely love that. So, beloved listeners, Marianne Williamson has just given us such a treat. Please do join us next week for Jack Canfield on December 9th, December 16th, Sonia Choquette, and then January 2nd, Neil Donald Walsh, who wrote Conversations with God. So these beautiful treasures. And Marianne, may you be blessed. May your generosity of spirit reach in and bring you all the way home to the resurrection you so richly deserve and demonstrate. We all love you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
Thank you for joining
I
us
love
on
you.
Live Your Love.
Thank you. God bless you, darling. Talk to you later.
Thank you so much for joining Marianne Williamson and I. I wanted to let you know about some exciting opportunities with me. My new book, Your Angelic Ancestry, Discover Your Archangelic Name, Heritage, and Higher Purpose, published with Hay House, Penguin Random House, is available now for pre-order on Amazon. So also Barnes & Noble. Just do a quick search for Your Angelic Ancestry, and you'll come right up with a link to buy the book. You can also join my pre-launch VIP Access Club. You just go to my website, aliciadoss.com, and right on the homepage, you'll see my VIP club for the book launch. And that's totally free. I'll be sending excerpts of the book before the book is released. We'll have some beautiful meet and greets on Zoom. So that's all available at aliciadoss.com/book. I hope you join. It's also going to be a great behind the scenes look at what it's like to launch a book, how to get a publisher, how to get an agent, etc., how to write a book as a first-time author. So I hope you'll join that. Again, totally free. Also free is a beautiful spiritual toolkit, and that contains a downloadable PDF for how to connect to your guardian angel instantly, which can help you access higher guidance, certainly protection, and definitely a sense of great upliftment and incredible joy. Also, there are videos for spiritual protection and clearing for light workers and empaths, how to go beyond time and space, how to connect to the great archangels instantly as well, and more. So that's right at aliciadoss.com. Right on the homepage, just scroll down to free toolkit. I hope you'll partake. Thank you. And until we meet again, live your love.